morning. Welcome to our virtual UUCH service. My name's Pam Griffin-Hody, and I'm the service leader this morning. Our minister is the Reverend Norm Horofker, and many thanks to our music director, Jessica Friesen, our RE director, Marie-Claude Leroux, and our wonderful technician, Paul Galbraith, for all their help with today's service. During the service today, the chat function will be open. Please say hello to anyone you do not recognize. If any of you are not already receiving our UU info notifications with news of our activities and services, please send an email to president@uuch.ca. The order of service for today was sent out over UU info yesterday with details of the service and announcements. We are very pleased today to welcome a guest speaker, Reverend Patricia Trudeau, Minister of the Northwest UU Congregation in Toronto, who will be joining us via Zoom.
Come ye who would have peace. Hear me, what I say now. Oh, come ye who would have peace. It's time to learn.
Well, here we are, still weathering the pandemic, actually in Nova Scotia in another lockdown, and yet we still have much to be grateful for. Even though our cases have spiked, we are still in one of the safest places in Canada. Many of us have already received our first vaccination, lots to be grateful for. And we are grateful to this congregation, which continues to think of others even during this difficult time. Your pledges are funding our programs and staff salaries, and your unpledged donations have kept our Sunday brunch and food box programs going. If you are relatively new here and would like to contribute to the church's operating costs or to either the Saturday brunch or the food box, that would be great. If you are an old faithful, a donation is always appreciated. Either can be done by e-transfer to treasurer@uuch.ca or by check mailed to the church address, which is on this slide and can easily be also found on our website. I would like to call on Marie Welton for our land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge that we are on Indigenous land. And today, as a member of our UU Climate Crisis team, I will be reading the words of William Hayden, Professor Emeritus and Senior Scholar in the School of Social Work at York University. We acknowledge our Unitarian principles that seek to address racism that led and leads to violent deaths of Blacks and Indigenous people. We know the strong connection between rampant anti-Black racism and settler colonialism that permits inequalities, injustices, poverty, and exclusion in Canadian society. We acknowledge the historical presence and past owners of the land in which we are holding this morning's service. We are indebted to Indigenous peoples from whom we took this land. Our hope is that someday Indigenous people in our nation will be true partners in what we call Canada and able to truly benefit from the lands they once held full ownership.
Our chalice lighting today is by the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Savage. Jessica will light the chalice in our almost empty sanctuary, and I'm going to light my own chalice that I have at home. We light our flaming chalice as a beloved people united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. May it melt away the tethers that uphold whiteness in our midst. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. May it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. This is a chalice of audacious hope. This chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals.
The opening hymn is number 1007, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. One of our favorites here, so please sing along at home. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart, in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. One more time. There's a river flowing in my soul. Come on, sing those words. There's a river flowing in my soul.
And Marie Claude will now join us for Time for All Ages.
Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to share a story of a young girl who visits the site of Africville here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, where the stories that she's heard from her family come to mind. She imagines what the community was once like. The brightly painted houses nestled into the hillside, the pond where all the kids went fishing and rafting, the huge bonfires. Coming out of her reverie, she visits the present-day park and celebrates a summer day at the annual Africville Reunion Festival. This is Africville, written by Shantae Grant and illustrated by Eva Campbell, published by Groundwood Books. Take me to the end of the ocean, where waves come to rest and hug the harbor shores, where the grass runs high up the hillside and the houses lay out like a rainbow, where homes smell like sweet apple pie and blueberry duff. Take me up over the hill, where the berries are thick and tasty. Then meet me at the caterpillar tree. From there, we'll run back the field for football and go rafting down Tibby's Pond. Catch me a codfish, then come watch the sea bring us all its treasures. Then take me to warm summer nights down at Kildare's field, a bonfire burning red like the going down sun. Take me to where the sky turns purple and rose in the morning, and light makes the salt water sparkle like diamonds and stars. Take me to where the pavement ends and family begins, where my great-grandmother's name is marked in stone, where memories turn to dreams and dreams turn to hope, and hope never ends. Where stories are shared all around me, the old songs still quietly singing. Take me to Africville. Africville was a vibrant Black community for more than 150 years. But even though its residents paid municipal taxes, they lived without running water, sewers, paved roads, and police, fire truck, and ambulance services. In the 1960s, city officials decided to demolish the community, moving people out in city dump trucks and relocating them in public housing. Today, Africville has been replaced by a park where former residents and their families gather each summer to remember their community. The historical photographs that were included were from the Library Archives of Canada. Thank you.
We take this special time now to reflect on our joys and sorrows. This is a sacred time in our service, a time set apart to honor the many sorrows and many joys that you, the congregation, are living, and to acknowledge the mutual support of our community. Today, I will ask Jessica to light one candle for all those who are here with us or in our thoughts, who are struggling mentally, physically, financially, or emotionally. And Jessica will also light one candle for all the joys that are in the room, the big joys that come along only infrequently, and the little joys that we are blessed by every day if we are able to see them. I will light a candle once again for the members and friends of our congregation who are shut in long-term care homes. John Patterson, Marie Davis, Arisha Cox, Ann Wood, Norm Sabowitz, and Philip Welsh. I'd also like to light a candle for Nova Scotia, currently in an unexpected lockdown. And we hold in our hearts those who find this isolation and extra responsibilities particularly frightening and or difficult. But in the midst of our troubles close to home, let's not forget others. And today, I would especially like to light a candle for India. Each week, we invite anyone with a joy or sorrow to share at this time to relay their thoughts to Norm by email, but I didn't receive any requests this week. Later, when we stop the live streaming on YouTube and before the coffee hour begins, I will invite anyone else to share a joy or sorrow if they would like to do so. And now Jessica will play for us the interlude.
Today I'll be playing I Ain't Got No, I Got Life by Nina Simone. And like always, I did a little research on the song, and she was the original composer, but these were actually two separate songs that were in a musical called Hair back in the 60s. And she took these two songs, put them together, and used it as her anthem. So I do want to give the original shout out to Galt McDermott, Jerome Rogney, and James Rado. Ain't got no home, ain't got no shoes, ain't got no money, ain't got no class, ain't got no skirts, ain't got no sweater, ain't got no perfume, ain't got no love, ain't got no faith, ain't got no culture, ain't got no mother, ain't got no father, ain't got no brother, ain't got no children, ain't got no aunts, ain't got no uncles, ain't got no love, ain't got no mind, ain't got no country, ain't got no schooling, ain't got no friends, ain't got no nothing, ain't got no water, ain't got no air, ain't got no smokes, ain't got no ticket, ain't got no love, ain't got no water, ain't got no love, ain't got no faith, ain't got no God, ain't got no wine, ain't got no money, ain't got no faith, ain't got no God, ain't got no love. And what have I got? Why am I alive anyway? Yeah, what have I got? Nobody can take away. I got my hair, got my head, got my brains, got my ears, got my eyes, got my nose, got my mouth. I got my sex. I got my arms, got my hands, got my fingers, got my legs, got my feet, got my toes, got my liver, got my blood. I got alive. I got my laugh. I've got headaches and toothaches and bad times too, like you. Oh, I got my head, got my hair, got my brains, got my ears, got my eyes, got my nose, got my mouth. I got my smile. I got my tongue, I got my chin, I got my neck, I got my boobies, got my heart, got my soul, got my back. I got my sex. I've got my arms, got my hands, got my fingers, got my lips, got my feet, got my toes, got my liver, got my blood. I've got a life, I got freedom, I've got a life, I got a life.
The following reading is by Michael Eric Dyson in his book, Tears We Cannot Stop, A Sermon to White America. Michael Eric Dyson is one of America's premier public intellectuals. He occupies the distinguished position of University Professor of Sociology at Georgetown University and is a contributing opinion writer for the New York Times, a contributing editor of the New Republic and ESPN's The Undefeated. Ebony magazine named him one of the 100 most influential African Americans and one of the 150 most powerful Blacks in the nation. And this is what he writes. My dear friends, please try to understand that whiteness is limitless possibility. It is universal and invisible. That's why many of you are offended by any reference to race. You believe you are acting and thinking neutrally, objectively, without preference for one group or the next, including your own. You see yourselves as colorless until Black folk dump the garbage of race on your heads. At your best moments, you may concede that you started the race game, but you swear to the God you love that it is we Black folk who keep it going. You have no idea how absurd that notion is, and yet we have grown accustomed to your defiance of common sense. And I give you the Reverend Pat Trudeau.
I light this candle for the work, the wonder, and the witness of this Halifax congregation. I have been so touched by the music, by the story, by the work that goes into this service, the attention to the technology, to the technical, to the planning and delivery. Thank you all. I never seem to get it right. Often, it seems that I just cannot get it right as a white person when it comes to anti-racism. Perhaps some of you feel like that too. I often do not get it quite right despite my good intentions and my strong desire to be an enlightened white Canadian, the shining beacon on the hill. I qualify. Look at all the books I have read, the studies at seminary, sermons, essays, the workshops I have facilitated. Don't I get some street cred as a solid white ally? One who influences other white Canadians? I am, after all, a progressive Unitarian Universalist minister. I am the wife of a Black scholar and historian, Wilburn Hayden, the mother of a Black activist, Donovan Trudeau Hayden. I am the owner of some great buttons and books and t-shirts on anti-racism, and I have my Black Lives Matter band on me at all times. So, even when I am confident that I am getting it right, my family reminds me that I am not quite the great white hope that I aspire to be. The looks exchanged at the dinner table tell me so. I try so hard. I am a good person, I say. No, it's not a good idea to take water to the Black workers, construction workers across the street, renovating the house across the street. What makes you think they don't have their own water? No, you don't get to be offended because the Black girl who served you at McDonald's was curt. There is no rule that says Black people have to like you or be nice to you. No, you don't get to patronize people and call it outreach. No, you don't get to use the term woke or reference Black spirituals in describing your own struggle. It's not the same. Then I ask myself, why is it so important to be that white person who gets it right, who gets it more right than the other white people? The need to be right, to be perfect, to be affirmed, to be right are some of the characteristics of white supremacy culture. White means right, right? What if we just focused on getting it rather than getting it right? What if I just got it, noticed, understood, kept my mouth shut? What if we just floundered like children learning to walk as we take those awkward steps of connection with people outside of our racial circle, outside of our neighborhoods? What if we allowed ourselves to be corrected and guided by those who are so often the target of racial aggressions and microaggressions? Instead of centering on our own experiences or filtering through the lens of our own white Canadian experience. What if we started to recognize that the problem is not limited to the USA and that our history of racism extends far back in our history? It has existed in rural and urban settings, East, West, Central, and Atlantic. It goes on today in perhaps more subtle forms than 100 years ago. And it's harder to notice, but it's there. It's just gotten more subtle. In Canada, there is much work to be done. You just have to look at our stats across the nation to see the imbalance and inequities. In Canada, Black people are far more likely than any other racial group to be victims of hate crimes. Not the perpetrators, but the victims of hate crimes. According to statistics from the Canadian Centre for Justice and Community Safety, they are also more likely to be stopped, arrested, and sentenced to prison time. Stories of racial abuse by police officers and white supremacists abound. Just for a moment, let's focus on Nova Scotia and policing stats. Scott Wortley's report in 2019 showed that 30% of Halifax's Black male population have been charged with a crime, as opposed with 6.8% of the white male population. This was on CBC. Robert Short was the announcer, or was the newscaster. Black Nova Scotians in Halifax are 5.33 times more likely to experience a street check, be stopped and checked, and from the Wortley report. And Black Nova Scotians represent just over 2% of the province's population, but 12% of adults admitted to remand, meaning they're in jail but they haven't been convicted, in 2018 and 19. This comes from the Nova Scotian Department of Justice. 11% of adult admissions to the Nova Scotia provincial or provincially sentenced custody, 11%. So I won't belabor that anymore. But in the workshops that we conduct, we've been doing a workshop with Halifax Unitarians. We've done 4 sessions now, and we'll do a 5th on Friday. You're welcome to come. I hear people say, okay, I get it. What can I do as an individual? What can my family do? What can my congregation do? Let's do something. I believe that we can make a difference in race relations in this country if we can begin to stop talking and really listen. If we can just get off the stage and make room for someone else, if we can forget about being at the center and change the narrative so that we use to defend our own inherent racism. As we discussed in the workshops, there are ways to decenter race in our own locality and nation. I believe that we can learn from our Prime Minister's brown-faced debacle in 2019. We begin with recognition of our wrongs, as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau did. He acknowledged. We name it. It's racism. We acknowledge the history of our country and the ways that we have been complicit. We admit that what was racism then is racism now, rather than trying to defend, deflect, and deny. We listen and we commit to change our own behaviors rather than just calling them out in others. That's too easy. We promise to change and ask others to hold us accountable. What has come out of this conflict is a national conversation. We talked about the news item from 2019 in the workshop. We showed the photos that emerged of Trudeau in brownface at a costume party several years earlier. Did our Prime Minister get it wrong? Is Justin Trudeau a racist? I don't know. I do know that racism is part of Canada's history and that racism persists today, perhaps in ways that are not always overt. I do know that Canadians are reluctant to admit that racism exists here in many forms, and not just in the USA. I know that it exists in me, this Trudeau. And I begin by recognizing that it is not someone else or somewhere else. I begin with myself and my own assumptions, knowing that I don't have to get it right. I do need to keep going on a path of accountability that is humble, intentional, and committed to the racial rights of all Canadians. So, what are we called to do? Lately, I've been asking, before even getting to the what, I've been asking why. Why do this work? Theologically, we are grounded in the first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. I know that the why for me has been about freeing up some of what has been pushed down in my own psyche. I know that there are rooms in my own house that need to be explored. I want my world to be bigger. I want that river flowing in my soul, in my mind, in my heart, and my world just gets bigger and more whole as I do the work. What to do? Not everyone feels safe or able to join demonstrations, but we can all do something as we move forward from fear to engagement. Often our role seems diminished as white Unitarians, especially as we age. One friend, a tireless 72-year-old activist, shared that he feels impotent because he can no longer actively join the protests. I can really relate to that. He does speak out, I reminded him, just by writing and dialoguing about race, by supporting those who are on the front lines of protests. Yet it does not seem quite enough. He has been one of the biggest supporters of my son in his activism. His name is Bob. We can acknowledge how racism has shaped us all. Racism is like an invisible gas that we all breathe. Whether one benefits directly or indirectly, we internalize racist beliefs, whether we notice it or not. Racism shapes our thinking, our actions, often unconsciously, even if we don't want it to. We can listen more and speak less. This is a tough one because we're talkers. Unitarians are talkers. If you are not part of a Black community, it is important to listen to Black voices first and foremost. How do they define the issues? What's important to them? Every group of people should have self-determination when it comes to defining a social movement and responses to injustice, choosing their own language, choosing their own imagery. Allies to any movement need to consider when is the right time to speak and when is the right time to just listen, learn, and follow. Get educated and read. Supporting Black people in meaningful ways is important, and there are ways to do so without burdening them or asking them to educate white people. We need to do our own work. Canadian Black activist Alicia Cox says we should not be burdening white people to educate us on racism and white privilege. Alicia Cox Thompson. I have noticed that my own research during seminary and in writing essays, sermons often amount to dipping in and out of books on race and racism and selecting those salient quotes. During the Now Times, I decided to follow the advice of author Desmond Cole, he's the author of The Skin We're In, a book I'd recommend, and read books by Black authors front to back and make notes, read widely. To go deeper into the subject, I recommend to you the book Policing Black Lives, State Violence in Canada from Slavery to the Present, in which Robin Maynard traces the still living legacy of slavery across multiple institutions in Canada, shedding light on the state's role in perpetuating contemporary Black poverty, unemployment, racial profiling, law enforcement violence, incarceration, immigration detention, deportation, exploitative migrant labor practices, disproportionate child removal, and low graduation rates. No part of Canada is innocent in the history of disrespecting Black lives and Black bodies. It's important to speak out against racism in conversations in everyday life, including family, friends, and coworkers. Family can be some of the toughest. If you are white, you have privilege that people of color do not have, and you have access to other white people in ways that people of color generally do not. Demand race-based data on COVID-19 testing, treatment, and vaccinations. Some provinces have it, some don't. Donate to Black community organizations that support, or to community organizations that support Black Lives Matter. In Nova Scotia, there's the Black Lives Matter Solidarity Fund. It's a mutual aid fund for Black people living throughout Nova Scotia. This fund was created, it's on the internet, and I apologize for not being able to put it in the chat right at the moment. This fund was created on March 17th, 2020, just over a year ago, to serve Black community members in Nova Scotia who are impacted by COVID-19. Finally, I want all of us as Unitarians, and particularly white Unitarian Universalists who have mostly experienced the police as operating in our interests, to pause, to breathe, and to open our eyes and our hearts as we begin to deeply interrogate this and other state systems. I'm not saying defund the police, but read about it, think about it. Speak out when you witness an injustice toward a Black person. In Halifax, there are community organizations such as COVID Cops 902. COVID Cops 902, I love the term, which launched an online community tool to track policing during the COVID-19 pandemic. They have started to collect data that is in real time, tracking the rise both in police profiling and citizen profiling against Black people and Black youth during this crisis. In conclusion, I'm not speaking today as someone who is woke. I am not speaking. And sometimes I don't even call myself an ally. I'd like to call myself an accomplice, but there are some days when I don't even feel like I measure up to that title. But I speak to you as someone who is passionate about this work, and at times I feel overwhelmed. I am often frustrated by not being at the forefront and feeling peripheral to the struggle. I am speaking as a white Canadian with many privileges who experiences racist thoughts and sentiments and makes mistakes. At those times, I reach out to others and I begin again. I am willing to learn and to feel awkward as I interrogate my own residual racism and recognize the pain that white supremacy, my white privilege have inflicted on others. I'm speaking too as a Unitarian Universalist minister who still believes that despite missteps and setbacks in our denomination's past, we are making progress. Our faith is grounded in principles that call us to justice, equity, and respect in human relations for the dignity of all humans. I just want to hear those principles stated a little more clearly and a little louder. I want to hear them. I want to hear those principles called out louder toward collective action and engagement. I'm in favor of the proposed eighth principle that has been considered by the UUA and CUC and discussed here in Canada. I would have to do a whole other sermon to get at the history and meaning of the eighth principle, and I know it has certainly been considered at UUHC. There is a deeper layer of understanding of race and racism that our faith and principles call us to pursue. May that way be found. May we find that understanding and the strength to take the path forward. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Reverend Patricia. So we are going to be singing, me and my friend here, Norm, we're going to be singing I'm on My Way, and this song actually dates back to 1750 to 1875, something around there. And I want you to really think about the words. And I'm on my way. I asked my sister, come and go with me. I asked my brother. If they say no, I'll go anyhow. So please sing along with me and Norm. I'm on my way to the freedom land. I'm on my way to the freedom land. I'm on my way to the freedom land. I'm on my way. Great God, I'm on my way. Take it away, Norm. I asked my sister, come and go with me. I asked my sister, come and go with me. I asked my sister, come and go with me. Great God, I'm on my way. I asked my brother, come and go with me. I asked my brother, come and go with me. I asked my brother, come and go with me. Oh yeah, great God, I'm on my way. Come on, Norm, if they say no. If they say no, I'll go anyhow. If they I'm on my way. And I won't turn back to the freedom land. I'm on my way. And I won't turn back. I'm on my way. And I won't turn back. I'm on my way. Great God, I'm on my way. Let's do the first verse again. Ready? I'm on my way.
I'm on my way
To the freedom land. I want to hear you clapping. I'm on my way.
I'm on my way
To the freedom land. I'm on my way. To the freedom land. I'm on my way. Great God, I'm on my way. Thank you all.
The words for extinguishing our chalice today are by Amy Zucker Morgenstern. When we take fire from our chalice, it does not become less, it becomes more. And so we extinguish our chalice, but we take its light and warmth with us, multiplying its power by all our lives and sharing it with the world. Thank you to all who attended the service today by Zoom or by YouTube. And thank you to Paul for making it all happen. We're saying goodbye now to those of you who joined us by YouTube as we end our live streaming. For those of you on Zoom, hang on, please. We will take a short 30-second break before we open up for any joys and sorrows people wish to share. And then we will have our virtual coffee hour.